Hey everybody, welcome to the round 17 player ratings video here on the Blue Abroad YouTube channel after a 10 goal win. Don't think I've done a player ratings video or any video really after such a win. So it's good, comprehensive, foot on the throat type stuff. And basically today I'm going to go through every player that played and really just give an initial rating to their game out of 10. I actually found this one to be difficult, which was really strange. There were certain players who it was very clear they had great games, but I think with the defenders, I found it really difficult to strike the balance between understanding that the ball was not really in our defensive 50 for a lot of the game, and then kind of trying to keep this standard of, well, we're winning, so you want to reward winning. So I definitely feel like there'll be some variations in the scores, but that's what the video is all about. These player ratings videos are all about just starting the conversation around how the players went, based on their performance, based on their own personal situation and, standing in the team. And at the end of the year, these player ratings become the votes for the Blue Abroad Player of the Year. So I think I'm definitely going to need your input on this one. I'll start the conversation, I'll give a number, and then you can finish it off in the comments. Let me know if any of these need to be changed and why, and then we'll start the debate and the discussion there. So as the team was named, Lewis Young, Wiedering and Nunes. Lewis Young, wow, he's slowly becoming one of my favourites. We've spoken a lot about his ability to really rise to the occasion in Wiedering's absence, and I really felt that once Wiedering came back into the side, it would only allow Young to be an even better player. I think his marking ability shone through. I think it's only going to get better. I gave him a 9. I thought he was really, really good. Again, trying to balance between the fact that the ball wasn't down there that much, but you can't really do much to the defenders. Our midfield really dominated on the day, and our forwards obviously did as well, and we locked it in there. So I gave Younging a 9. Wiedering gave him a 7. I tell you what, sometimes the absence of someone or something makes the heart grow fonder. And I tell you what, just the love I have for Jacob Wiedering was just reminded. He's low-key, I think he might be my favourite player now. I love Fish, love Durds, love Stock, but Wiedering, just this cool, calm, collected head. Didn't look as sharp as what he has at times throughout his career, and that's clear. He's missed a lot, but I think he's done a really good job to get back into the team. And the most important thing is now, hopefully, build some momentum going into finals. I gave him a 7. I didn't feel like he impacted too much, but at the same time, again, the ball wasn't down there as much. So just my instinct told me that it was a 7, and I think he'll just be better for the run. Nunes, I gave him an 8. I loved his game. He had to fill a hole down back. He was named in the back pocket. And, again, a guy that is versatile, a guy that can play a couple of roles. He can fill a hole down back like he did today. He can play on the wing. He can even play across half forward, and he's shown us that he can kick goals. He's a real asset to us. It was a real shame that he got hurt. It was a nasty collision. I think it was a bad corky. At the time of filming this, I'm not 100% sure of what it was or what it is. But nonetheless, I thought he was really strong, solid, played his role, did his job. Gave him an 8. Next up, it's Plowman, Doc, and Sard. Plowman, I gave him a 6. A few of those old moments that we've seen throughout his career, but listen, he's had a phenomenal 4 to 5 weeks. Really, really strong 4 to 5 week block. Probably just didn't have as good a game with ball in hand, but I thought defensively, the way he cut off angles away from the ball, it's those things that don't really get looked at that, really, I guess, bring this opinion on Lachie Plowman. He's usually the first person or one of the first few players that, supporters will go at. But I didn't think he was as bad. I thought he made a few errors with ball in hand, but I thought defensively he was fine. And again, we've conceded 53 points, a disappointing second quarter, but overall, the course of the 4 quarters, it's hard to really criticise too much. So I gave him a 6, and we'll move on. Doc, 10 out of 10. Was a little down on his best last week and responded well. Just drives the ball forward so much for us. 600 metres gained. He had 28 possessions, 8 marks. Just used the ball so well. 85% disposal efficiency. He might have been our best player on the day. I ended up giving it to Charlie Curnow, but Doc was just super, and he always looks to really get a lot with his kicking. He always really helps us with that territory battle. So he was sensational. Sard, I gave him an 8. I didn't think he was, obviously as influential. Probably didn't need to do as much. He did have the 13 possessions, so maybe 8 is a little harsh. But again, I'm trying to balance this notion of rewarding the win and not conceding many points. So I don't know. Maybe based on what he's capable of, it's probably not an 8. But based on how this game went and how well we defended, I kind of felt like I needed to reward him. So this is definitely one I'd love to get your input in, because I don't know. I don't really know how to grade this one. But I start with an 8, and we'll see how that one plays out. Then we go to the midfield. Fisher, Cripps, and Cottrell. Fish, I gave him a 9. Kicked 2 goals. A really symbolic moment, I thought. His first goal, he obviously drew the free kick on Samo, kicked the first goal of the game, and there was a little symbolism in that. Samo was drafted at pick 5 or pick 6. And Fisher was drafted later in that draft, and you just sort of see where their careers have gone. And I guess now we've got some story about both of their careers that has happened. So I thought there was something in that. And he's kicked a goal on Samo, he's drawn the free kick. Bit sad to see the way Samo is not with us anymore, but at the same time, the world can't be perfect. And, the fairy tale of drafting the kids and all of them being premiership stars is exactly that. It's a dream. Thought he was really dangerous and impactful. He just has this ability to look up the ground and change angles. I don't know how I feel about the drawing of the free kicks. I understand it's in vogue at the moment and it's popular and it's talk of the town. I understand that the onus is on the tackler to be better, but I just don't feel fully comfortable with sort of looking for the free kick. I feel like in the long run of this game, the game rewards you for just being tougher. And I don't think Fish needs to be like Jack Ginnivan. I don't think he needs to do it, because I think one thing he's added to his game this year is this willingness to want to get in there and absorb the contact. And in essence, he is still absorbing the contact. I just didn't feel fully on board with the raising of the arm and really accentuating the contact. But maybe this is just part of the game. Maybe this is just a natural evolution of the game, and now it's just on the tacklers to be better. And it's a really interesting point, because it's a few players are doing it now. I think this weekend a few players really looked at it, and that's what'll happen. You want to win a game, you do whatever you can within the rules. He's done nothing wrong. I just don't know if I feel fully on board with it, because I just think he doesn't need to accentuate the contact. Just be first with the footy, and usually the rest will look after itself. I'm also mindful of finals and prelims and grand finals. I don't know if they're getting paid in the big crunch time games. So yeah, those are my thoughts. But at the end of the day, I don't play the game. They all play the game. They know better than everyone else. We just sit here and watch. So I'm very mindful of that, but just sharing my thoughts on the look of it. Cripps, I gave him an 8. He had a really interesting game in the sense that he had to respond mid-game. I think a lot of them, maybe their eyes lit up a little bit after quarter time. We kept West Coast scoreless, and there were a couple of occasions, even the commentary was sort of saying, a few plays where the extra handball could have been given or set up the teammate, and we just sort of went away from what makes us great, which is the real selfless play. I think Cripps was probably guilty of that with that handball that he didn't give off. I think it was in the second quarter, but his third and fourth quarters were really strong, and he got back to basics and tackled and did his thing, and it was a good, strong leaders game. And I think I'll talk about Jack Silvani later, but it was good to see an interaction between him and Jack. And sometimes Cripps needs a bit of a pick-me-up, and over the years he's been the guy, the only one, or the guy at the top of the tree, because Doherty's been out injured or whatever the case may be. So it was good to see him get that support from others as well. He's still human. He's a mighty player. He's a mighty human, and he's been a mighty leader for us. So I gave him an 8, and I thought he bounced back well and finished strongly. Cottrell, I'm loving what he's doing. He's really thinking his way through the game on a level that he hasn't before. He's really had a nice patch. The stats will say 12 possessions and a goal. The possessions, obviously, I know he's capable of a bit more than that, but just, the inside mids really got that job done. Really, really dominated for the majority of that game. So Cottrell, I tossed up between 8 and 9. I settled on an 8, but he could very easily have a 9 because of the way he played that role on the wing. And again, he didn't blaze away like he used to. He's just really starting to mature. It's a real delight to see it happen. Forwards, we've got Corey Durden, Sam Walsh, and Jesse Motlop. Durds, I gave him a 10. I think over the last few weeks, he just hasn't been able to get the reward on the scoreboard. But this game, he did kick the 2. The pressure's always there. The smothering is always there. He never lets up in that regard. And that's, again, he would be a coach's dream, as a pressure small forward. And then, to see him hit the scoreboard and get a couple of goals and just get that reward for effort, I thought was really pleasing after a few weeks where probably would have wanted a bit more from him. But yeah, he's coming along nicely. You got to remember, this is his second season, and he's really, really got some solid experience under his belt now. You just watch the intensity with which he sprints when he chases down. It's, he's looking to. He's a hunter. That's what he is. He's a hunter. Looks to kill. It's really pleasing to have a player like him on the list. So gave him a 10. Sammy Walsh, gave him a 9. Thought he was solid. Probably not as prolific as what he has been, but listen, at the end of the day, 25 touches, kicked a goal as well. Like, he wasn't bad. He was very good. So I gave him a 9. Jesse Motlop, I gave him an 8. He didn't hit the scoreboard, obviously, but I thought the way he chased and tackled and the way, he put pressure on was really pleasing, and it looked consistent throughout the 4 quarters. I think it's a perfect game just to get under the belt. Good experience for him, and yeah, he's just got something. He's got that, what is it? It's like an it factor. He's just got something about him, and you just start to think, a couple of pre-seasons under the belt of him and Durden. Like, if we're talking about Jesse Motlop and Corey Durden in 3 to 4 years from now, it's very exciting what we've got after, a couple of years of asking for a small forward. Remember the Papley situation and, thinking, that was a real hole. We've really got that down pat for the future. So I'm excited by that. I gave Jesse an 8 for his game. Then we move on to Charlie, Harry, and Jack. I gave them all 10s. Charlie in particular, just way too good. Way too good. He was snapping them. He was kicking set shots. He was doing it all. Kicked 5. So pleasing. So pleasing to see him fire up. And it was the first time him and Mackay had both gone really big with games. They both kicked 5. Harry, the beautiful moment of Harry, and it's something that is becoming a bit of a hallmark of his game, and I'm loving it, and probably doesn't get spoken about, but he's laid quite a few chase down tackles this season. The one against Hawthorn comes to mind, and then beautiful one in the first quarter, really set the tone. And then he got his reward later in the game, which I thought was really pleasing. Kicked his 5, gave him a 10, gave Charlie a 10, and then Jack Silvani just dives at everything, gives, I call it grand final effort. He plays like it's the final game of his career every time he plays. And you just love it. Played minutes in the ruck, played minutes up the ground. He's like an extra midfielder in there. I just think it's such a good thing when Jack is around the ball. And I know that when Pitto comes back, he probably moves a little bit more to this forward role that he has been playing. But I don't know. I feel like there's a conversation to be had there around him being more involved around the ball, because just good things happen. I guess good things happen wherever he is. He's just a delight. So I gave him a 10. DeConing, Kennedy, Hewitt. DeConing, 10. 10, mate. Get in, son. The talk before the game, Nick Nat. Nick Nat's a huge body. Nick Nat's a champion. That's what he is. He's a champion human being. He's a champion footballer. And there's just been this notion that DeConing might not be a ruckman. I just think when we talk about Lewis Young and his ability to be thrown into the deep end once Wiedering was down and to respond, I think it's the same thing that's happening with DeConing, that he's just really growing before our eyes. And I think we'll look at this patch of game time since Pitto's been out, and I really do think this is the defining patch that has taken Tom to the next level, because he wasn't playing anything like this or for long enough like this last year, and he's still very, very young. So I was thrilled with how he played. I was thrilled with how he competed. Even his ability to win some of the ball and get in the handball chains, I sense that will become more of a theme with the way he plays the game. You know, it's got a little bit of Matty Cruiser about it, dare I say it. So he's got a good mentor there, and he's coming along nicely. I gave him a 10. Matt Kennedy, I thought that was a really strong game. I gave him a 10. The way he tackled early, I think him, Chera, and Hewitt in particular, early, they really set the tone. And I loved all of their games. Kennedy was just more assured after, a couple of weeks where I thought, all right, he just wasn't playing at the same level as early in the year, whereas this game I felt he was right there at that same level. And I think it's the marking. When he's marking the ball 4 to 5 plus times a game, he had 7 in this game, and he's providing an option around the ground and he's taking those contested marks as well, that's when I find him to be at his best. He also laid 7 tackles, which was the highest for the team. So I gave him a 10. Hewitt, gave him a 10 because he's just a guy that doesn't get, and it's happening already. We've got all these, flashy names and big stars that we celebrate, and a guy like George Hewitt sometimes can fall to the wayside because what he does is just very basic, but he does the basics so often and so consistently. So I gave him a 10. Like I said, I thought him, Kennedy, and Chera really set the tone for us in that midfield early, and really after a couple of weeks of us talking about the midfield just not being quite switched on with their pressure, I thought that was a total turnaround, and in essence they probably really set the game up for us. So gave him a 10. Then we moved to the bench. We've got Lockyer, Adam Chera, Nick Newman, and Honey. Lockyer, I liked his game. I gave him an 8. He didn't win as much of the ball as what he has in the past. His kicking is beautiful. I don't know, I sort of tossed up between 7 and 8. I loved the 3 tackles that he laid. He's starting to get there, and there was a moment, I think it might have been in the third, where he and Gaff were sort of mashed up on each other on one of the wings, and the ball went out of bounds. And I think with Lockie, the next level is just to build some strength in that body and become a bit more powerful, because he's got running ability, he's got kicking ability, he's got the footballing ability, and I think once the body strength comes into play, I think that's going to elevate his game to another level. But I think he's coming along nicely. It was more of an inside midfielder's game seemingly than what it was a winger's game, the way I saw it. So yeah, but at the same time I didn't want to cut down too many players after a 60+ point win. So gave O'Brien an 8/7. I'll let you discuss that. Chera, loved his game. That was a much needed Adam Chera performance. He was a little down last week. Obviously his first game back, looked a lot better for the run, looked strong, looked powerful, looked classy, and used the ball relatively well. Gained some solid territory for us. He had 506 meters gained, and I didn't give him a 10. I gave him a 9. I don't know. That was just my instinct on his game. Nui, I gave him an 8. Same principle as sort of like Saad. The ball wasn't down there much. Didn't need to do as much, but obviously he's been great for us, and he had a solid game. So I gave him an 8. Honey, I gave Honey a pass mark. I thought he was thereabouts. It was kind of like an almost game. There was one particular passage of play which he didn't get a stat for, but it is important. I think Durden laid a shepherd, Honey with the tap onto Walsh for Walsh's goal. And those are the moments that are important, and they don't come up on the stat sheet. And if you're not looking out for them, you'll miss them. But I think it was a good game for him, good experience for him. I think any game we can get into these young fellas is a good one for us. And I gave him a pass mark. I thought he just did his job. He had the 4 handballs, and he laid a tackle. So I don't know. It was a laid in. I'm being a little generous, I think, but that's all right. And then Will Hayes, just want to mention him. Won't give him a rating, but I liked what I saw when he came on. He only played 5 or 6 minutes, if that, but he had the 5 touches. He spread hard. I would like to see a game with him on the wing, I think. I don't know how it happens. Maybe now that Nunes is out, maybe Hayes will fill a role. I don't know what the extent of Nunes' injury is, but yeah, I liked what I saw. It was a very short cameo, but nonetheless, it looked good. It looked zippy and it looked assured. So those are the player ratings. Like I said, let me know in the comments below. Let us know in the comments below if you think any of these need to be changed and why, and that can absolutely be accommodated for. So enjoy the week. Short turnaround. Big game, round 18 against the Cats, but we'll enjoy this one for today and then we'll move on. Have a good one and go the Mighty Blues.